All right, week number 2 assignment. Usually I'm going to try to provide different forms of feedback on your assignment throughout the course of the term. Hopefully start off with some audio feedback. It can be time intensive, but I think it's the most useful in terms of providing feedback. And then maybe around midterm, I'm going to, I don't know, may stop doing that, or I may just ask if you want that or not, kind of thing. So anyway, so the key to the assignments, just kind of is like stress, is in your own words, define, explain. This isn't about these assignments are not a space for to go on like, well, what's your opinion? What's your reaction? It's like, well, first to do that, if you wanted to do that, first you got to go through, define, explain, so you can demonstrate understanding, and then you can go to that other place if you so desire. That's fine. You critique things and add things, but you have to kind of start off with an understanding first. I was working with a student before, and it was clear to me, it was evident to me that the student wanted to argue on something, but didn't have a strong understanding of the concept idea first. And it's so important to have without that understanding, it's just easy to get into reactions without first understanding. So these assignments are built on define, explain, apply. It's kind of the general kind of model. I won't go through the requirements as far as the general requirements. I mean, you kind of know those by now, but just do your own work, turn it in by the scheduled time period. You have, if it's late, you have 1 week to turn it in. That kind of thing. All right. So the specific questions for this week is, explain culture. Go back to that first slide in the lecture. Okay, what are the different elements of culture? Describe them. You don't have to describe each one of them in detail. Just explain culture. Like, what is it? Provide an overview of culture. A culture that you belong to. It could be Central Oregon. You could be part of, like a motorcycle subculture, a horse riding subculture, or some culture that you belong to. It could be subculture or counterculture, but just a culture you belong to. It could be an American, it could be an Oregonian, and then walk through some different aspects of culture and describe like what is unique about that particular culture, language, practices, tradition, whatever it might be. So that's part number 1. Part number 2 is watch a short little video explaining culture, subculture, counterculture. And then a video on body suspension, and start off by defining subcultures and countercultures. What are they? And then a brief explanation of how body suspension operates as a subculture as compared to a counterculture. The video shows skin piercing and body people being suspended with metal prongs, metal hooks, metal devices. If that's like, well, it's too uncomfortable for you, think about just some other subculture. It doesn't matter what that subculture is, and just sort of walk through like, why is that a subculture and not a counterculture? Number 3 is provide an example of material culture. And then what is gained? What's the value in understanding material culture? Number 4, what's ideal culture? What's practice culture? Define, explain both of those, explain the importance and the value of understanding ideal culture and practice culture. What's the overall goal in doing that? And what are some of the techniques or some of the approaches of looking at ideal and practice culture? Part number 4 is looking at basically ethnocentrism, cultural relativism. So define those terms. Want to read this article, short article. If that article is not available, I can't remember if it is or not. I didn't check right before this. I checked on everything else, but I didn't check on that one. If not, find some other example or just reflect on the video itself. And then like looking at if somebody from the outside were coming to the United States, what do you think people might find strange if they came from an outsider perspective, came to the United States? And the final one is listen to this podcast called Weight of Our Words. It addresses the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis about language and culture, about the influence of language on thought. It's 50 minutes long. I think it's really informative, really engaging, and then provide 350 to 500 words. Always put your word count after the question, summarizing the main ideas from the podcast, and discuss how it relates to the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. And then some other cool stuff. There's an article handout in week 2 or week 3, flight F227, maybe in week 3, looking at the sociological perspective about a group of rugby players that a plane crashed in the Andes Mountains back in the 1970s, probably. Group of people survived, and then kind of unpacking that scenario through a sociological perspective. And then just like, I'm not going to walk through all these, but I think some interesting ones is conversation with Simon Tam, a TED Talk, interview with the white supremacist, some different things you might be interested in. All right, best wishes, be well. Have a great rest of your day and a great weekend. Catch you next time.